Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Perpetual Chess. We have a first-time guest I am really excited to welcome to the show. I've been aware of him for a long time because he was in this classic chess movie, as we will discuss. So our guest earned the National Master title at age 12. He became one of the youngest African-Americans in history to do so, alongside his cohorts, his running mates at that time, now FM, Joshua Colas, and now IM, Justice Williams. He was a star player for IS 318, which is a team that won many, many national championships, still winning national championships. He was one of the kids in the aforementioned 2012 chess documentary, Brooklyn Castle, which, as I've said before, if you haven't seen it, it's my favorite chess movie. It really hits the highs and the lows, and sometimes truth tells a story better than fiction. It's just so much fun to watch. He's trained with Grandmaster Alexander Strapinsky, later earned a chess scholarship to Webster University, where he played under GM Susan Polgar, but he's now come full circle. Last year, he returned to IS 318, where he is now one of the chess coaches, and he's founded an organization called KnightShift in Brooklyn, New York, devoted to teaching chess to our youth and teaching chess mindset to our youth. And I am honored to welcome to the program National Master James Black Jr. Welcome, James.
Hey Ben, thank you so much for having me. That's quite an introduction. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, well, as I sent you, so you have like a short Wikipedia page, but then there's something called Grokpedia that has like a novel. So I
Yeah.
had to, and I was familiar with your background, but I had to go through that novel and try to separate truth from fiction. So I hope I did okay.
Yeah, you hit it spot on. I really appreciate it.
Okay, and I'm excited to chat. As I said, remember you as a little kid in this
Yeah.
movie, and now you are no longer a little kid. And Elizabeth speaks quite highly of you. For listeners, Elizabeth Spiegel is a legendary chess teacher at IS 318, and I want to read you what she wrote me about you, James, that led to this interview. I'm obviously a big fan of all that Elizabeth has accomplished, and her word carries a lot of weight. She wrote, quote, "One of the best decisions I made as a new program director was inventing a new job and offering it to James Black last year at Nationals. He's now working with us 3 days a week and coaching at Nationals. The kids think he's the coolest person they've ever met. He comes to work in sparkly muscle shirts with bulging biceps, and they follow him around like spellbound ducklings. They call him Master Black. He's also getting back into chess after a long break. He has a business called KnightShift, but I can't understand exactly what it is. He says it's a Discord community, but as an old person, I don't know what that is or how it's a business." Unquote. So I found the whole thing hilarious, and we will get into answering all of these questions. But James, to start off, so you're someone, chess obviously played a massive part in your life as a kid, playing in the spotlight somewhat, getting a lot of opportunity, but also some sacrifice to work so hard on chess. And now you're back. So I'm curious, what brought you back at age 26 to the chess world?
Yeah, well, I'm 27 now. I'll
Okay.
be I'll be 20 I'll be 28 in December. Um, but I mean, I've been around the game. I think my career as a player took somewhat of a pause. I have so obviously I grew up, playing chess, whatnot. And then in 2019, right before the pandemic, my last tournament was World Open 2019. And so that was the last tournament I played until last year at the NYC Chess Norms. Shout out my good buddy Alex Ostrovsky, um, former high school teammate of mine.
Shout out Alex. Yeah, I interviewed him too.
Yeah. So he gave me the opportunity to be able to play in that. Um, but I've been around the game teaching, for the last, many years or so. Um, and I think about obviously how I missed the game um, as a competitor, but also, the individuals that I've been able to work with over the few years have definitely played a part. A lot of the kids that I work with in particular, they're in my ear about, oh, Mr. James, Mr. Black, you gotta, play a tournament, you gotta come back. Um, I thought for a while it was really something, that I thought I had no interest in playing anymore. Um, Fast forward to today, I can't really tell you why, but I have been playing a little bit as of late. Um, I played a tournament most recently in March, also NYC. chess norms tournament, and then I played a rapid tournament, game 15 most recently, and on Mother's Day actually, I was able to uh beat Alex Lindemann. I had a very nice battle with Liam
Wow.
Putin. Um, yeah, shout out Alex Lindemann, another coach of mine on my journey. And Liam Putnam, who's a fantastic player who I've been seeing around for a little bit now, and I got a chance to play him. Very, very nice game, went down to the wire. One that I'd like to, say that, I had him. I ran out of time. But that's how the game goes, right? You live and you learn from it. Um, but I feel real good about, what just my playing future has in store. Just doing ramp ups, studying it on my own, being able to just try to become a better player. And I think now, one thing that's, super unique just being older, um, you understand things a little bit differently about life. Feelings change, opinions change with new evidence or information. So I feel like the game is slowed down a little bit for me. I understand, and even maybe a bit more intentional about what I'm looking for on the chessboard. And I think even though maybe perhaps, I'm not as sharp as I think I could be yet, in regard to comparison to, my 12-year-old self. But I still feel very confident the ability to compete and have a chance against, anyone that I play. So that does wonders for me. I feel pretty good about that.
James, you brought up a lot of interesting points about your return to chess, and I'm curious hearing
Yeah.
you describe sort of. So it sounds like you kind of never left because you've been doing some teaching, but in
Yeah.
terms of playing, you're ready to re-ramp up. And hearing you talk about it, it strikes me as someone who's been around a while that you're kind of still in that sweet spot where you could still, if you push, you could get a lot better.
Mhm.
But and hopefully, I don't know, like you don't have a family and kids yet, do you?
No, 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 not yet, not yet.
Yeah, so you don't have all those hindrances, and of course, living in New York, you have the opportunity to compete as much as you're able. It still requires a lot of energy. You got
Yeah.
to put the work in, but at least you don't have to travel on top of that as much as some other people. So as you do start to sort of try to regain that sharpness, as you described that you had as a prodigious 12-year-old, what's your regimen going to be like?
Um, so I in comparison, right, when I tell people all the time that I study chess about 6 hours a day,
Wow.
on my journey to, become a national master. My dad will wake me up at 5 a.m. Um, we read, we do puzzles, go over games, all of the above. Um, It's about 7:30, 7:45 or so. I was fortunate enough to go to elementary school, literally right around the corner from where we live. So I could probably leave home at, 7:50 and, get to school more than on time, actually. So that was, just a thing that we did, pretty much every day. I'd play at the Marshall Chess Club. So it was a lot of chess and obviously I don't think I have that luxury right now in my time, but one thing that I can take, from my upbringing, I think I know what the hard work looks like or what the work ethic is supposed to look like in regards to, you know, just being consistent in the case of even if it's, 30 minutes a day, just brushing up, trying to stay sharp. I work with some pretty strong kids at 318 and they're very competitive in their own right. They they talk some trash to me
Nice.
sometimes. So they keep me on my toes a little bit. But when I mentioned, events like the Rapid, where, I'm able to, score pretty well, that does something for your confidence, obviously. You just want to, build on top of that. But chess is a very interesting game in the sense of, a lot of people struggle with separating, the outcome from the identity, right? And there's a understanding there that you can actually, still be improving without, necessarily the win-loss column showing that. So I'm looking forward to it. I think I'm around 21, 20 or so FIDE currently. So I've dropped quite a bit from my peak, which was 2240. But I'm looking to play a little bit more. Hopefully, chase a FM title. And then those, the other conversations start to happen as opposed to what I could do after that.
Yeah, it sounds like you've got a good attitude, James. I mean, it's a grind for sure, and you definitely want to take it one step at a time. And as
Yeah.
you kind of lock back into improvement, I mean, as you describe, you put a ton of time in your teenage years, and now coming back to it, it hasn't been that much time. You know, we're talking about you're featured in this movie in a 14 years ago, but
Yeah.
still, chess improvement, the competitive landscape, the way people studied, it's all changed a lot. Do you see any adjustments that you need to make or like any changes in how you teach compared to how you were taught?
Yeah, I think the game has obviously, I think, changed a lot since my Scholastic competitive days. There's a lot more resources, I think, that a player can use today in 2026 to be able to become a better chess player. Um, Everyone says chess is the game of life, right? And so part of my thought process on the board and even off the board, and that's where, um, night shift comes into play and, kind of why I started it. Just being super intentional, right, about everything and every move that we're doing, and I'd like to think that as chess players, we all think that we're doing that. Um, and, just trying to continue to build the proper habits. Obviously, we can, do everything that we intend to do for 30 moves, and then on move 31, you don't do it, and that's the move, or the reason why perhaps we, lost a game or whatnot. But win, lose, or draw, right? There's obviously something to learn and take from every game that we play. And, I'm not gonna look too much into the wins, losses, and the draws, of course. Still trying to get a rhythm. And like I said, I feel pretty good about my chances, when I sit across from anyone on the board. I was fortunate enough to play Magnus Carlsen once upon a time. So,
Wow.
there's I guess there's quite, no opponent, that's too large perhaps.
What's the story there?
Yeah, so Magnus, he actually came to 318 in 2012 when I was in eighth grade. We had just won a high school national championship as a middle school. Right, we were the first school to do that. And myself and Justice and my teammates Isaac Bareyev and Kenneth Martin and Matthew Kluska. We had a pretty strong team, but I don't know how Miss Spiegel and Mr. Galvin were able to do it, but he came to 318. He played us, some games. There's a video on YouTube that people who are interested can check that out. Um, But that was a crazy experience. I speak to people all the time about Carlson's dominance in that aspect because, he was the number one player in the world. Not the world champion yet, but he was world number one when I was in eighth grade in 2012, And like I said, I'm 27, I'll be 28 in December, and he's still the world number one. So the longevity, it's there on his end. So it's very impressive. And like I said, I think that was a um I ended up losing the game, but I did learn a lot from it. And it kind of humbles you a bit in the sense that, even after the game, you understand that, it's still chess at the end of the
Mhm.
day. Um, I definitely think in a moment like that, I was a bit starstruck maybe. But
Understandable.
yeah, but that moment taught me that, it's still chess at the end of the day, you know? And so despite what the pairing sheet says, whatever the rating says, is there's a favorite and an underdog in every competition, and you still got to play the game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, returning to what you were saying about your recent comeback, like beating Grandmaster Lenderman, shout out to Alex. Like that's
Yeah,
super impressive. Because he stays in form, and
yeah.
obviously incredibly accomplished and strong player. So coming back for me, for most people, if they have a layoff and they come back, calculating and stuff like that, like you got to kind of get the dust off. You kind of got to resharpen the knives, but it's still there, especially when you're young like you. But openings can often be like an uphill climb. Like,
Yeah,
it can be a situation where they say like a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing. Like you
yeah.
have current knowledge from 14 years ago or whatever. I mean, more current than that. But things have changed. So how are your openings, James?
Well, it's funny you ask. I think uh I think one of the challenges that I faced, when I made the decision to, want to play more competitively again, that was kind of where, I had to, I guess, turn the steering wheel in that direction and figure out kind of, what I was going to do with that. Again, the game has evolved quite a bit. There's always so many lines that are, occurring every day and, regards to openings like like a Nightorf Sicilian or something, right? It's so sharp. Many people are playing it, it's evolving every single day. And so I say these days, I'm feeling very comfortable with systems that, don't have too much theoretical lines and are more um about understanding, understanding where your pieces want to be, understanding what the plans are, and the type of positions that you're playing, understand what the pawn structures, and the positions that you have, what they call for. Um, and even probably, most importantly, understanding the plans and ideas of my opponents. I tell people these days, I feel like chess just might be something crazy like 90% of what your opponent wants to do and maybe 10% of what you want to do. I think a lot of games, go wrong in the case of perhaps us as players, it's the selfishness and perhaps the ego that, we're super concentrated on our own ideas, but perhaps are not worried or concerned enough about what our opponent is trying to do. And so understanding it from that lens and, talking to myself and trying to play, both sides and, wear both hats has helped me to, stay pretty competitive. Again, as I said, I think, my sharpness and maybe quote unquote tactically, when I think of, what I'm capable of, I still think I have a notch to go up. But like I said, I feel pretty good about, the chess I've been playing lately. I look forward to playing some more and, hopefully, the next time that we run into each other, I'll have some greater news to share with you in regards to, how my playing career is going.
Nice. And the article I mentioned, the sort of deep dive background, said that your play is inspired by Mikhail Tal. Is that one true or false?
Yeah, so when I emailed you this morning, and I think I mentioned that for the most part, everything I would say was pretty correct there. Tyler's one of my favorite players. I study a lot of his games. I think I have a few more people I'd put on the hierarchy, perhaps in, my inspiration for my personal game. Um, but I think on my come up, and I think in anyone's come up, you're gonna take a look at, some games of the older world champions, at some point. And he's one that I study quite a bit. But if I had to say someone whose game, um, was super inspiring for me, I don't have a particular order, and sometimes the number one changes every day. So I'll give you three players that I really
Okay.
like a lot, and I really respect their game, and I would say I probably watch these guys a lot or study them a lot. In any order, uh, Tigran Petrosian, he's one of my favorite players. Obviously, I think he's known as one of the better strategists or positional chess players that the game of chess has ever seen. Um, I would throw Mr. Fisher in there,
Hmm.
Bobby Fischer. He grew up playing the King's Indian attack, which him and Gary Kasparov made pretty famous. And then another person I would throw in is Carlson, right? And I think he's the one player that I've actually gotten to watch, compared to the other two where I can go over their games. But, I've gotten to see him, um, like I said, in live action when I got a chance to play him. I've been able to, watch him in, obviously the many different tournaments that he has played over the years and, the journey to becoming world champion and the dominance as world champion, and even in, most recent years. So I'd say Petrosian, Fisher, and Carlson are three that I really like a lot. Study a lot of their games. Um, and I think that I wouldn't say I've modeled my games after them, but they are three players that I do like a lot. I don't think I quite have anyone that I model my game after, but I try to study all of the greats, and take bits and pieces and try to incorporate it to my game. I'd probably describe my style, as something. I don't think I'm the most aggressive player. I think I am perhaps maybe pretty conservative, and I like to play a even keeled game and kind of almost in a sense, waiting for my opponent to maybe make a mistake. But I do think that I'd like to think that I take pretty calculated risks, and I think I take my chances, when given them. I like to take what my opponent gives me, to sum it up.
Yeah. And hearing you describe these legends and
Yeah.
how much you've learned from the way that they play, it strikes me, and I know you studied under Grandmaster Alex Strapunsky, who of course had the classic Soviet chess upbringing that I'm sure he imparted to you a little bit. But you're at an age where not everyone is as steeped in history, and the students you're teaching certainly aren't as steeped in history. Like it's not automatic. There are people who become grandmasters just by treating chess kind of like a video game where, you just want to play the best move and you just want to assimilate patterns, but you're not
Yeah.
necessarily looking at the historical arc of chess. So I'm curious, James, when you work with these younger kids and you start to talk about like Tigran Petrosian or something, do they roll their eyes or are they with you?
Of course they roll their eyes, Ben. Of course they do. My no, the kids that I work with, they're amazing. They're amazing. They all think I talk too much. They all think I talk too much. They think that I am an old man, quote unquote, as some of them call me. But I think they understand, where I'm coming from. Um, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to work with them, and they allow me to coach them. So I'm super grateful for them in that case. But yeah, I try to we try to get a little historical, and talk about some things. We do have some historians on the team, especially at 318. But yeah, it's we have these conversations. Obviously, I think of course they are more familiar with the players that we have that are competing today, um, as opposed to I think when I mentioned Petrosian the first time, some of them didn't quite know who uh this person was. So it's an opportunity to teach and learn. Um, as I say, I think everyone is the student and the teacher forever.
Yeah. And Elizabeth said you're at 318 in particular 3 days a
Yeah.
week. What's your approach? Like are you analyzing games? Do you give like specific lessons, like opening work, all of the above? What's your emphasis?
Yeah. So first, big thank you to Elizabeth. When she reached out to me, I'm thinking sometime this time last year, about a chance to come back. It was a no-brainer for me. Um, Obviously going to the school and being pretty familiar with the community. Um, it was an opportunity that I was excited to take, and like I said, it's a community that I'm super awfully familiar with. A lot of the teachers that taught me when I was there, they're still there. So a lot of familiar faces. But as far as right, I think my teaching style, just in general, inside the classroom, outside the classroom, even when we, travel for these national events, we sometimes I think we just have there's obviously chess involved, but again, I think four pillars that, I focus on within my teaching are confidence, discipline, strategic thinking, and decision making. And so those are the four things that are super duper important to me. And of course, these things can be used on and off of the board. And so like I know at events, for example, we these national tournaments, right? We'll, just sit and have a conversation for even 30 minutes to an hour. And we'll talk about, things that we can do that can help us win some games this weekend. They can be on and off the board. And we'll kind of have like this hot potato thing going on. And some kids will say sleep. Some will say, nutrition. We're talking about, eating the right foods. And I think that's a conversation that most 10, 11, 12, 13 year olds are probably not having,
Yeah.
right? And I know that because when I was 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, right, I wasn't thinking about, necessarily what I would eat before a chess game. Talk about getting rest. I've had some of the kids get up at 6 a.m. and come to the gym with me
Wow.
at 6:30 a.m. And they're doing pull-ups, they're doing push-ups, they're on the treadmill, trying to run a mile. Um, and so, right, I think Kobe Bryant once said to right, and I'm paraphrasing, but he, essentially said, to achieve something you've never done, you must, give up something you love so much. Um, and so in a world where, you know, obviously younger players are doing many, many things outside of chess, and a lot of it, for pleasure, could be video games or YouTube shorts or whatnot. We talk about allocating times to things that are important to us, right? And so in their case, right, we talk about how some of them want to break a certain rating threshold. They'd like to win a specific individual award. Maybe they want to be part of a team championship. And so we talk about things that they can do to be able to achieve these things, whether it be on the board or off the board. What they can do in a classroom, with myself or Elizabeth, and what they can do at home when no one's watching. Um, and just trying to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Be comfortable doing the things that perhaps we haven't given a try yet, trying new things. And so I think a lot of my teaching, obviously, there's a lot of chess involved, but we also do many things that are off the chessboard. The kids are so competitive. We have moments where someone will do 10 push-ups, and then I'll look at another kid and say, "Hey, you have to match him." And then that person will do 20, and someone will come and do 30. They're trying to grab two chairs in a classroom and do body weight dips. Um, and so they're super competitive all around. And so it translates into other areas. Um, I think the relationship that I've been able to build with the kids, are a lot personable. And they go so much beyond chess, with every individual that I work with. And that's something that I, cherish a lot. So I think that's what, makes my teaching a little bit unique, is that, they know that every week or whatnot, it's going to be something different. I'm going to push them in ways that perhaps they haven't been pushed before. Um, and in some cases, it makes some of them uncomfortable in the sense that, they feel that this is different. I haven't done it before. I don't know how I can push myself to keep going. Um, but we're super big on, again, separating outcomes from identity. Right? We do these things because that's just the standard. It's us building the proper habits. And this is the type of individual that we will become to achieve the things that we say we want to achieve.
And In Brooklyn Castle, I think it was John Galvin who was then the vice principal and is now the principal and kind of oversees the administration of
Hmm.
the whole chess program. I think it was him who said that at IS 318, the nerds are the jocks. You know, the chess players are like the celebrities.
Yeah.
Is that still true?
Yeah. I think the whole community within 318, anyone who's been around that community or, goes to school there, from the teachers there, from the nurse to the janitors, everybody knows the incredible chess program that's been built over the years. Um, and so there is and a lot of the players' faces are, they're known, and it's an incredible community. You'll see players walking in the halls to class, and their friends you know, kind of cheer them on about, successes that we've had, or, morning announcements, things like that. Um, so yeah, definitely, I would say it's such a special program. All credits, to Elizabeth and John Galvin. Right, such a story program that has been built, before I got there, long after I've gotten there, and so it's incredible to see.
And obviously, you accomplished a lot in your time as a Scholastic player, but when you look back, you know, speaking to what you said about sort of trying to impart life wisdom beyond the chessboard, is there anything you feel like you would have done differently with your own development?
Mm, that's a great question. Um, I would say I would say no though. Um, I'm a I'm a big believer, and you are wherever you are right now for a reason, and everyone gets dealt, a hand of cards, and right, we make the best of the situations that are in front of us. I tell people all the time, the chess changed my life. The upbringing that I had, and the countless people that were part of my journey. If I made a list, I would leave 50 people off.
Mhm.
Um, I from Elizabeth, to John Galvin, to obviously my dad who taught me how to play the game. Um, Thomas Higgins,
I remember Thomas.
who
Rest in
yeah,
peace.
I've
Yeah.
got a I've got a picture right here, Mr. Higgins, a
Oh,
picture. Uh, so this picture, for some context, this was in Fulton Park, um, in August of 2011. I had just become a national master, in the park that I grew up playing at, for most of my life, which I still go back to today. Um, they threw a surprise, not a birthday party, but a surprise party for me for becoming a national master. So that was an incredible day. Um, I say Mr. Higgins, for example, right? I think he was one of many who instilled, a different type of confidence in me. Um, he would tell me and many of my teammates, he'd say, he'd say, the only reason you can't beat me is because you're scared of me. Um, and I think about that, and um, and so many of the things that he did for me, and a lot of my teammates who I'm still in contact with to this day. Um, he changed our lives, but he also made an impact on us, in so many ways, that things that didn't have anything to do with chess. And so, when I'm teaching the way that I am, he's someone that I constantly think about, and how he gave us an opportunity to be able to flourish off of the chessboard as well, and changing the way that we think, being intentional about everything that we're doing, and understanding that everything that we do should have a reason. You know, um, a lot of the kids that I work with, and we'll talk about, hey, why did you make that move? And they'll shrug their shoulders and they say, I don't know. Right. So we deem that as something that's um unacceptable in a sense. Right. If you play knight of six, there should be a reason. And, we're not really concerned about whether it was correct or incorrect. But subconsciously, I think everything that we do as humans has a reason behind it. And it's easy to get where you're going if you know how to get there. And so trying to, be logistical in that sense of, hey, I'm going to eat this. This is why I'm going to do this today. This is why I'm going to make this move or come up with this plan. And, there should be a reason behind that. But if I made a list of the people in my journey, I would leave so many people off. I think I'm so fortunate and blessed to have had, so many people in my corner, um, and support. And obviously, Elizabeth Spiegel in her unique case, right? She's someone, and John Galvin as well, right? Um, they are obviously people that are, still people I can consider mentors and be able to come to navigate um even through life, again, things off of the chessboard. So just super thankful for that.
And so you're at 318 3 days a week, James, and you've got your organization, Night Shift. Are you at other schools? Are you doing private lessons? Like, what does the rest of your week look like?
Yeah, so I teach at 318 a couple of days of the week. I am also I have another school that I work with. It's Che Montessori, and it's a private school in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. Um, and that group dynamic is a little bit different. They're a lot younger players. I work with children as young as 4 years old, turning five, to about 4 to 7 or 4 to 8, 7. And for them, they're such precious human beings, right? They're so young. And so I enjoy being able to introduce the game to them. We have come a long way. When I first started working with them, most recently in January, they didn't know how to move the pieces. Um, and so, right, it was, starting from square one. Um, and again, that's been something, that I've taken, um, I've been, pretty passionate about the opportunity to do that. Fast forward to May, I have some of them asking me about Buckhouse.
Hmm.
And so most recently, they've learned how to play Buckhouse. But again, outside of just becoming, better chess players from then till now, they have, learned so many more skills, and I think it's, it's a testament also to, there's a lot of questions, one of the questions I get asked a lot is, how do you know when your child is ready to learn to play chess? Um, and it's one I feel like I've given a different answer every time that someone has asked me this. But I truly do think the game of chess, I feel as if someone can learn, as soon as they are able to speak. And the kids that I work with, case, they've been able to be more intentional in understanding, I think a lot of chess players, when they first learn how to play, they don't really know why they're moving this knight out or moving this pawn out, right? There's no intentionality behind the moves. They're just moving pieces because they're able to move, but they don't quite understand, why they're making the moves that they're making. And that's been fun to see that growth in that sense over the year, over, these past few months or so. The fact that, maybe a few months ago, they couldn't explain or didn't quite know why they were making a move that they were making, and now they do, right? So that's been fun. But again, right, in regards to things that they have learned um off of the chessboard, right? Their ability to communicate with one another, right? At their age, they can get so impatient. They'll come to me and they'll say, James, this person is taking too long to move,
Hmm.
right? Um, so learning patience, in the Buckhouse case, learning to communicate, talk to one another. And so I think that's done wonders, for their people skills, and that'll translate. obviously more as they get older and they'll be able to use that. So again, I think chess, right, is the game of life. It has done wonders for me. Um, I'm looking forward to continue to build Night Shift, to kind of build the community to where um, people are able to use the tools and resources that chess teaches us, and to be able to continue to use that on their chess games, but also more importantly, off of the chessboard as well.
Yeah.
Um, I think outside of the school, as I mentioned, right, I would like to, I want to get into start playing more. Um, I am doing private lessons, one-on-one. I do some group classes. I actually have a night shift strategic lab that I'm going to be running this summer. It's going to be in the Bed-Stuy area in Brooklyn at Richard Beaver's Gallery. For those that are in the New York City area and maybe interested, we're working with children who are ages 8 to 14, and we're calling a strategic lab. It's going to be run on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. And again, chess is the entry point. Chess is the tool that, Night Shift uses to be able to help individuals build more confidence, more discipline, strategic thinking and discipline, or decision making rather, excuse me.
Okay. And if people want to find out more details, I can put your email. Is there any other way for people
Yes,
to?
you can put my email. They could also check us out on Instagram, and all social media platforms at Night Shift Official
Okay.
underscore.
So
Yep,
I'll link to that, but we're not done, James.
of course.
So so I was watching this old WNYC video. It was like the day of a young chess champion or whatever. It showed you studying.
Uh,
There's this. I mean, first of all, the number of trophies you had like was unbelievable, but also a chock full chess bookshelf. And as you described, studying
mhm.
6 hours a day. So I'm curious, James, which books resonated with you the most?
Um, it's funny you say that. I tell people I have a personal favorite chess book. Um, it's called Night Moves by Charles Alexander. Um, I have one copy of it, a real beat up copy
You got me
of
looking
this
this one
book.
up.
Yeah,
I don't-
Night Moves by Charles Alexander. And it's funny because, like I said, I have this real old beat up copy of it, but I'd like to buy another copy and many copies. And maybe I'm just terrible at this assignment, but I have not been able to
Huh.
quite find it. It's a different cover book than one that shows up on the internet, at least in my experience of finding it. Let me see if I can pull it up and show you really quickly. Yeah.
Huh. Okay. Wow.
Yeah, so it's Night Moves by Charles Alexander. The knight is my favorite chess piece, right? For the same reason as everyone else's, right? It moves differently from the
Yeah.
other pieces. But this book specifically, it hones in on the knight. 1,000 out of 1,000 recommend. It's my favorite chess book ever.
Is it like life reflections or is it actual chess
No,
advice? I'm not
no,
like I thought I. It's very rare that someone recommends a chess book I haven't heard of at this point.
no, so it strictly just talks about the knight and different resources and what can be useful for the knight. Like talking about how quickly there's like so many different diagrams, and just to give an example, it'll talk about, how many moves it'll take, to get uh a knight from H1 to A8, for example. Do you know how many moves?
No, not off the top of my head. I mean,
Yes. So
G3
yeah,
F5.
yeah, right. So it should be six. So G3, F5, D4, B5, C7, A8. Yeah,
Yeah.
so six. Um, but it has different diagrams, and it talks about how many moves it takes for a knight to get from this square to this square. Um, it of course re-emphasizes, I think a lot of people know this one. The knight changes colors on every turn,
Right.
right, that it makes. So it's literally just a book on the knight specifically. You know, it was always my favorite piece growing up. I've had many games where I would describe, you know, my knights were the only reason that I was able to survive, you know, a game that, you know, I probably should have lost or something like that. Um, but if, you know, for anyone who's looking for a new read and you haven't heard of it,
If you can find it, yeah, which
right?
seems,
If you can find it, right? Night
yeah,
Wolves. And if you can find it, please send me the link so I can get me another copy of three.
okay. And James, you also, so as I mentioned in the intro, you studied chess at Webster University, of course, famous
Yep.
program. I don't know if you heard the news, but unfortunately, that's being shut down. The chess program is. But I'm
No, I
curious.
did not hear the news.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Susan Polgar had a post on like Twitter and Instagram. Apparently, a lot of universities are seeing funding cuts, and
Okay.
they just said the money wasn't there anymore. Susan was quite frustrated because she felt like she could have done some fundraising if they had
Yeah.
asked her. Um, Even though she's no longer like Laquan Liem is now heading the program.
Yeah. I
Um,
remember. Yep.
so yeah, so that's quite unfortunate because they have quite a chess legacy. But
Mhm.
nonetheless, I'm curious what that experience. I mean, it's got to be a culture shock going from Bed-Stuy to this, university in
Yeah.
St. Louis with chess players from like predominantly international chess players. What
Yeah.
was that like for you?
Oh man, that was such a fun experience. Granted, super short-lived. A lot of people don't know. I only attended Webster for one semester. Nevertheless, it was a um an experience I'll definitely remember. By far the strongest chess team I've ever been a part of. Um,
Yeah. So who was
right.
there when you were there?
So I attended there at the same time with Justice and Josh.
Okay,
Ray Robson was there. Um, Ilya, why can't I remember his last name right
Nizhnik,
now?
Nizhnik,
Yeah, I w-
Ukrainian,
yeah
black
yeah
hair. Yeah,
yeah yeah, Ukrainian guy.
yeah,
Um, but there was so many strong GMs and IMs. I think I want to say my hierarchy. I was probably like the 17th or 18th highest rated
that's
player on the
crazy.
team.
Yeah.
Um, and so right in a case where you know most teams that I've been on, you know, since middle school, I'd, you know, probably been somewhere in that top two, top three range,
Right.
if not number one, right? Um, and so that was amazing to see. Um, because I'd like to think, you know, someone like myself, I've always embraced the idea of being around stronger chess players, quote unquote. Um, and so to be able to kind of see how grandmasters work, I guess, on a day-to-day basis. Um, and then, you know, we had some moments where we were able to hang out as a team. I know Susan specifically, her and Paul, they invited, you know, the team, you know, to their home for Thanksgiving that year. So that was super fun. Um, Beautiful home. But yeah, it was definitely a culture shock going from Brooklyn to St. Louis. I had never, that was my first time being away from, you know, Brooklyn for so long. Um, and no, it was fun. And like I said, it was when I first started playing chess, if you would have told me that I'd get an opportunity, you know, to go to college on a chess scholarship and play chess, you know, that's something that was super unheard of. Um, and obviously, you know, that became a little bit more realistic as I got older and got better. Um, but you know, it's so full circle. It's another piece of evidence, you know, to how or what, you know, the game of chess has done for me. Um, Chess has put me in so many different rooms. And, you know, even like today, it's still, you know, doesn't fail to amaze me. It's truly amazing.
Yeah. Well, and it's great that now you get to pass the torch on to the next generation.
Yeah, that's uh that's definitely in the plans, something that I'm pretty passionate about. I feel it's my duty to be able to share every piece of knowledge that the game has given me to the next generation.
So, closing chess advice, James. Say one of the kids, like they draw inspiration from you, but they just want to know clinically what should they do to get better at chess. Like I'm going to spend, James, I'm going to spend 2 hours a day away from the
Mhm.
team in addition to what we do here at school. Like, what should I do? What do you tell them to do with those 2 hours?
I would tell them to go with and take a look at, I think especially younger players today, I think there's a growing obsession perhaps with chess engines.
Mm-hmm.
Um a lot of can we look at the engine? My kids know that I hate chess engines so much. uh and although I do think they can be pretty useful, when I say I hate chess engines, what I'm referring to is using them without trying to pull any information or evidence out of the games yourself. So I would always encourage players to um, look at a few of your losses, especially more recently, as many recent losses as you can. I think as chess players, we remember the tougher losses than we do the greater wins. I may be the unpopular opinion on that one, but uh, I would tell them to look at some losses and try to annotate the game themselves, give their own thoughts, their own ideas about what they think they did well during the game and what they think they didn't do so well. I would also, in regards to, in the systems that you play, right? If you are a E4 player, right? You play the Italian or the Ruy Lopez, right? You may play the Caracan or the Sicilian. I would say look at, many games of the strong players that you respect and that you love that are playing these type of systems or positions and, see what or how they are playing these positions. Um, I think as I mentioned earlier, I think more important than, learning all these theoretical lines, I think it's more important in an opening to understand um the middle game plans of the systems that you are playing. And even more important, understanding the opponent's plans of, the systems that you're playing. To give an example, if you are playing the uh the Panov Botvinnik attack and it exchange right in the Caracal, right? Um, that position has an isolated queen pawn, right? So you'd want to learn how to not only play with the isolated pawn, but also understand of how your opponent wants to play, being that they are playing against the isolated pawn. Um, and so having an understanding of those things, um, I think makes any position a little bit easier to play. Um, I think over everything though, I would say if you can do, those things, go over your games, you can look at the games of the players that, you respect, um, that are playing the systems that you play, you can see how they are playing it. Because I think one of the things that makes chess super fun is that everyone has their own unique style. Um, and perhaps, the way that you play chess, can tell someone a little bit about maybe the individual you are. Some players are obviously more aggressive than others. Some are more passive than others. And so, figuring out your style and your niche. Um, but I would start there. I would start at looking at the systems that I'm playing, and I would look at, grandmaster games or, any strong players that are playing the systems that you're playing. I would look at annotating your games, trying to figure out what you're doing well, what you're not doing well, and trying to improve on the things that you're not doing well, right? If you're noticing that maybe you are struggling to make plans and middle games, perhaps you can focus on evaluating positions. I know with a couple of things that I talk about in my groups, I think evaluating the position has a few different phases. So of course you'd want to look at a position, and dissect the standard king safety pawn structure. What are the pieces like? Um, but what we try to do is look for the advantages and disadvantages and the position from both sides, come up with a plan, candidate moves that complement that plan, and then an evaluation at the end of the calculation. Um, and you know, we put ourselves in positions to where at a certain point we were able to spend, 10 minutes, 7 minutes, five, to a point now we're spending, 2, 3 minutes on these things. Because we're trying to simulate real life game situations, right? And so during these games, right, if you're playing a game 25 or a game 60 or 90 minute, 10-second delay like they would at nationals, um, you can afford to spend 10 minutes on every single turn. So part of that is, being able to manage the time, but also trying to dissect as much information as you possibly can from the position. Um, it's all easier said than done, but chess is very stressful, high anxiety game, right? So we try to control the things that we can control.
All right. A lot of great advice throughout this interview. And yeah, you tied it up well. So James, good luck. Excited to see the comeback continue. And yeah, I think people know how to reach you, how to keep up with you. Follow your organization on Instagram, and I'll link to your email as well. Anything else?
No, Ben, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, yeah, great to chat, and yeah, we're excited to see your continued progress as a teacher and player.
Thank you.